everybody. Welcome to Zoom at 8. We are here every Tuesday night. My name is Julianne Peterson. I am your host for Zoom at 8. And I am a loan officer, senior director at Old Capital. We are a premier provider of debt for multifamily. You know, we will go into other asset classes, but we really do great things in multifamily. We just finished our Old Capital conference, and if you were there, you know it was spectacular. And thank you for joining us. If not, make it a priority next year. It really, really is a wonderful place to meet people, to see what is going on. And by the way, it has been a rough week. The rates are unbelievable. Okay, we were told 75 bips and it has gone crazy. Yesterday, I opened up my computer, 3.75 on the 10-year treasury. Today, I open up my computer, 3.95. It's gone up 20 bips. Okay. We're looking at Fannie. Okay. You're looking at 3.69 to 6.25. That is a big change from the beginning of the year when we saw rates at 4, at 3.75, at 3.50, okay, at 10-year treasury on agency loans, okay? So get a hold of me. If you're looking at deals right now, which you should be, if you're underwriting deals, get a hold of me. Let's go through what this kind of lending looks like today. And by the way, the step down approach, that is your prepayment penalty. It used to cost only 20 to 40 bips more. It's now costing 70 points more. So yield maintenance is your cheapest route. Just think about that. 625 plus another 70 bips. That's going to be up into the 7% range. So make sure that you're paying the right price for the debt that it's costing. Let's get on with the show. All right. I'm glad you're all here. And tonight is going to be special because I have a friend of mine who I've known for a couple of years. Kelli Lovelace is here. And it's a great opportunity to have her come and join me, because a lot of people don't know what the heck is a title attorney do. And then Jami, okay, Jami, you're going to have to help me with your last name because Boledovich. Jami and I met last at our Old Capital conference, and she's like, oh yeah, I do escrow, title and escrow. I'm like, oh my gosh, we've got to talk, because Kelli, who's an attorney who does title, we got to get you guys together because everybody needs to understand this. I think a lot of people don't know about title and they don't know about escrow. So let's get you guys together. This is a perfect opportunity for new people, even if you have been around for a very long time. So I asked both of them to come and speak to you and to figure out, to answer some of your questions, because this is going to come up. They are kind of the quarterbacks to every transaction. So you're going to have exposure to them and you're going to have questions. So why not, instead of being in a transaction, get those questions answered in this environment, in this community here. So Kelli Lovelace, she actually is in Dallas. She's a licensed attorney, State Bar of Texas, real estate attorney, insurance, 1989. She's currently a senior commercial escrow officer and underwriting counsel. She used to be with a fee attorney, closing agent for Chicago Title since 2011. So she recently went to Stewart Title. And you know, she is also an investor and learning how to be in our community. You know, what she does is the face of the escrow officers and the title insurance. And Jami has had over 25 years in the real estate industry. She has 18 years working on the escrow side. She's skilled in both real estate and commercial as an escrow officer. She moved into the title insurance side in 2017. She worked in Los Angeles and Orange County. And in early 2020, she was recruited to work for Chicago Title in California. She then transferred in July of this year to Dallas-Fort Worth as a sales executive for Fidelity National Title, which is who she's with now. She's able to facilitate transactions in all 50 states. With having both escrow and title experience, Jami believes customer service is her first priority with each and every transaction. So I want to welcome both of you, Kelli and Jami. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I do want to go ahead and have everybody, if you would give them your attention. If you go to the right-hand side of your screen, up at the right, there is a little squares. If you would put on speaker, then we'll be able to see who's speaking. You should have my picture there right now. And then we're gonna ask some questions, and I wanna make this more of a kind of a working event. So if you have questions, please raise your hand. And then I know Jami has an amazing software, kind of an application that she's going to go through. And I think it'll be very helpful for all of you. So we're going to work through that, right, Jami?
Yes.
Okay,
definitely.
perfect. All right. So either Jami or Kelli, you guys have worked some of these things out, but I do want to know what the heck is title insurance? Why do I need it? I know I had my own issues with title insurance, why I took it out. But from your perspective, why do we need title insurance, and why the heck is it so expensive?
Title insurance, as Jami was saying, is a one-time transaction purchase. You purchase it when you purchase the property, or when a lender is requiring a loan policy anytime you're going to deal with a lender. So if you're refinancing, maybe you're doing construction and the lender's wanting a title policy. But it's a one-time transaction fee, and it covers the time of the policy, which is the recording date of any of your documents, backwards. Any other insurance is covering you for future events. Title insurance covers you for defects that are found on the title or that were not discovered at the time of closing, and an opportunity to cure those things before you purchase the property. A lot of things that you're going to look at tie together. So when you're looking at a title commitment, the title company has gone through, researched the records, like Jami had mentioned, including the tax records, deed records, public information. All states are a little bit different. Some states cover zoning. Texas does not cover zoning. So if you're looking at properties in Texas, you're going to be looking at an independent third party for zoning issues. So you want to be comfortable with what you're actually looking at with respect to your title coverage. The transaction is set with the contract purchase date. So the title insurance company starts their job at that point in time and researches the deed history, the title property history from the contract date going backwards. As you move towards closing, the title company updates their records so that you get up to the closing date, you have the most current title information you possibly can with respect to the property. The one thing that I would like to impress upon everybody is relationship. Get to know your title company. They can go to bat for you with respect to underwriting questions. One example I have is if I've done 10 deals with a guy and I know that he has a painting issue on one property, the other 10 properties have no painting liabilities, no mechanics liens that have been filed. I'm going to go to him and we're probably going to get something worked out with respect to that one transaction where there may be a lien outstanding, and get that resolved before we ever have any kind of issues with respect to the actual closing. Just because I know him, I know the way he operates, he knows me, we have a relationship. The other thing with relationship is, and I know you guys have all heard about wire fraud. Please take that seriously. Please know who your title company is. Please know who your escrow officer is. Don't just take anybody's call. Oh, I work for Stewart Title Company. Oh, I work for Fidelity. Jamie's not here today. Kelly's not here today. I'm calling. We need to tell you about your new wiring instructions. Please double check. Please verify always your wiring instructions before you send any kind of money to the title company.
So who pays for this title insurance?
Typically the seller pays for it, but it is negotiable. It's always negotiable.
Okay. I know it's different though on commercial versus residential. There isn't it's a little bit different. Kelly?
Typically the seller pays for title insurance.
Yeah.
At least in the state of Texas, seller typically pays for it, but it is 100% negotiable. So don't be afraid to ask that. And especially if you've got a transaction where you feel like you're maybe paying a premium for the property, ask, or that may be a negotiating tool. I've got all these other people that are vying for the same property, but I'm willing to pay the title insurance premium. That takes that cost away from the seller, sweetens his deal a little bit. So it's a negotiating tool that you can use as well.
So I'm curious, you are an attorney, Kelly, and then there's escrow officers. What is the difference?
Well, I think an attorney can be an escrow officer, but not all escrow officers are attorneys. So an escrow officer handles the money piece of it. So they're the safe haven for your money. All the financial transaction pieces come through the title company. They act like or the escrow officer, they act like a clearinghouse. So the earnest money comes to the title company. The lender's proceeds come to the title company or to the escrow officer. Any of the invoices come to the escrow officer. The tax bills come to the escrow officer. All that gets accumulated and compiled on the settlement statement upon the funding of a transaction. When everybody gives their approval, their blessing, their instruction to disperse funds, then the title company or the escrow officer is responsible for then dispersing those funds according to the instructions that they're given. So escrow basically means money in, money out. It's a zero game. The title company, the escrow officers pay all the invoices, pay all the fees according to what the settlement statement reads. There's no actual add-ons. You can't just get funny money. And so actually the definition of escrow is money in, money out, it all zeroes out. It's always other people's money. So again, I'm going to go back to know your title company, have a relationship with them, know that the person that you're dealing with isn't going to walk off with your money. On that note, I'm going to also suggest that everybody look at getting insured closing letters from their title company. Some states charge for those, some states do not. But it's a way for the underwriter to say, hey, we've authorized Kelly, we've authorized Billy, we've authorized Jami to handle our money for us or to handle your money for us. And we're going to give you a little bit of extra protection to make sure that they do their job correctly. So always get those. If you've got some kind of attorney that's helping you, they'll always suggest you get an insured closing letter or closing protection letter. It's the same thing, just people call it different things.
Okay, and when do you ask for that?
As soon as money hits the table. So if you've got earnest money deposit, ask for that.
Okay. Closing protection letter.
Right.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Now, what about a survey? Is that something that you take care of? Is that something that you manage alongside the buyer's attorney? Let's talk about that.
My personal opinion is that if you're paying millions of dollars for a piece of property, go the extra dime and buy a new survey, because you don't know if a street's been widened. You don't know if there's been a new access point. You're relying on an affidavit from a prior seller who's trying to sell this property. I'm not saying that anybody's going to have any kind of malfeasance in their heart, but they may have forgotten that they added an access point that might be important for you. Because they're looking at the survey. That's the survey. We'll use our old survey. if you're spending that kind of money on a purchase, please just go ahead and get a new survey so you have the most up-to-date information to make your decisions with. The surveyor would cover things that are located when he goes out to the property. He'll do a walk around. He may be able to tell you that there is tire tracks that go across your property that lead to the back 40 of somebody else's property. And now you've got somebody that's got some kind of prescriptive rights coming across your property, ingress and egress. Do you really want that? Do you want to look at that and get that addressed before you actually buy that piece of property? So the survey and the title commitment go hand in glove. It's an extra tool for the title company to use to outline what is actually on site. The surveyor is critical to our job because he actually is boots on the ground, walks the property, notes where fences lie, if there's any encroachments for sidewalks, porches, utility lines that may not appear on a survey just because the lines themselves traverse the property and the poles are located on either side. Like I said, points of ingress and egress for other properties that adjoin or are contiguous to your property. So the survey is critical. I just always recommend you bite the bullet. You pay for the survey when you're doing your purchase. Most people, if you're doing a refinance, pull out your old survey and use that one. But on a purchase, I would always suggest you get a new survey.
Now, Salvador asked if the seller does a survey within 6 months, do you recommend a buyer still obtain one?
Well, my personal opinion is
Still.
I would at least get it recertified to me as the buyer because that seller paid for it and that's the seller's surveyor. So you want to make sure that you have that relationship with the surveyor too, so that the surveyor says, okay, I've got your back as well as the seller's back.
Great suggestion. Mark has a question.
Yeah, I actually have a comment. I have a survey story for you. I was working with a client years ago who was going to build a brand new multifamily apartment building, and he got an ultra survey from the seller. And during the course of the construction, they found out that there was an underground gas line that went directly underneath where the building was going to go, and there went their 7-figure contingency. So I concur with what you're saying. It's definitely worthwhile getting an updated survey.
Yeah, amazing.
Well, that being said, don't wait till the last minute to make that decision too, because the surveyors are swamped and they're going to need 3 weeks minimum, probably 4 weeks in most areas to get surveys done. So don't wait till the last minute to make that call.
Absolutely. So talk to me about underwriters. Shopping an underwriter.
Okay, so this is interesting, and Jami, jump in because I feel like I'm just taking center stage here. But so I work for Stewart Title Company. Jami works for Fidelity Title Company. And we are basically competitors. So we're both trying to get the same transactions that you guys have to offer for us. Well, I may have a different look at a transaction because title insurance is a business decision from the insurance perspective. It is kind of a gray area. There's no black letter law that we're applying here. We're assuming a risk when we insure like any other insurance product. But my standards would definitely be different than Chicago title standards. So that's why you need to have more than one relationship. And that's why Jami and I are both on this call tonight, in my personal opinion, because I think you need to have a Jami, you need to have a Kelli, you need to have somebody that says, hey, Stewart Title said no, and can Chicago Title do this? And you can go to Jami and say, hey, Chicago Title's willing to do this. They're willing to assume the risk. So you do need more than just your favorite person. Have those relationships with other title companies.
And I agree. And I'm fortunate. I've worn 2 hats. I came from Chicago Title, the NCS group in California, and now I've transferred to Fidelity, the commercial group here in Dallas-Fort Worth area, but still doing national commercial. I'm fortunate enough where, because I'm with the Fidelity family of brands, they own Fidelity. They're the largest. So they own Fidelity National Title. They own Chicago Title. They own Lawyers Title, Commonwealth Land Title, Alamo Title. So with that being said, you know, having that backing, like Kelly said, having the underwriter, the go-to that, you know, who, you know, depending on the type of transaction, the size of the transaction, how complex it is, we know the underwriter to reach out to. And Billy is on the line with me too, my coworker with Fidelity with the group. He kind of recruited me over to this group, so I'll let him speak on that too. Just
Let's hear from
add
Billy.
into what I
Billy,
haven't said.
what do you got,
Hello.
Billy?
Hello, everyone. Well, I would echo what I'm also a lawyer in Texas. I do underwriting. I'm also escrow officer, so do all the same hats.
We
I
got
would
the
agree.
whole crew on the call today. This is
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would agree with Kelly. I'll be a little more blunt in that sense. The majority of title companies that you are going to see in major metropolitans, I call them suburbia title companies. They're going to be predominantly residential companies. So as you're negotiating your deal, just be cognizant if someone has maybe a title company that's well known, but it's like not necessarily in a CBD or main metropolitan area, they may not have the same requirements for underwriting. I can tell you here in Dallas, Fort Worth, there's probably 4, maybe 5 groups that have the sophisticated commercial underwriting. Kelly's group at Stewart is one of them. The Fidelity, there's 2 Fidelity companies that have in-house underwriting in Dallas area, and then a couple others. But other than that, if you're at a suburbia title company or maybe some other shop, you're going to get pushed up to a standard underwriting department, and they're literally going to have a checklist. And if your transaction doesn't hit their checklist, then it's going to be a hard no, or whatever the it's like, no, if you don't hit the check, because I don't have authority to override the check. Kind of like Kelly mentioned, the sophisticated groups understand it is a business decision. It's a risk analysis. And so just like they do at Stewart, we do at Fidelity. We'll take a more analytical approach. We have 5 in-house lawyers. We'll kind of take a dive at it and see what we really think the legal risks are, even if it doesn't check the box. But I will say there's only a handful of those groups in each major metro. So just get to know those groups. Kelly's is one of them. We are one of them. But I would highly recommend that, because you don't want to end up with an escrow officer that might not understand, and they're just pushing it up to an underwriter who's just checking a box.
Exactly.
So when you get your contract, you sign your PSA, you've got typically the seller who is providing that PSA for the buyer to sign. That seller has already decided who the escrow company is, who the title company is, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as a buyer,
Whoever's paying for the title policy is the one that's going to pick the title company.
right.
Yeah.
So again, if you have your favorite title company and it means that much to you, then as the buyer, offer to pay for the title.
Yeah.
So you
I will say it depends on the bulldog in the negotiation. So I've seen it work with some strong personalities, but Kelly's argument is most commonly used for whoever pays for it gets to choose. But if you get into institutional investors, sometimes they're going to say, listen, this is who we're using. We don't care what you say, and you're paying for it. And
gotcha.
But it does depend. But most of the time, it is the seller.
So for those of us who are in the house, who are in their first deal, they've never signed on a loan. They've done residential, but they've never signed. They have never looked at any of these, and they're signing their life away. And they have questions. Who do they talk to on these documents? They don't have their lender. They have their broker. I've brokered the loan for them. But they're sitting at the escrow office, and the escrow officer says, I don't know, because they're the only ones taking money in and money out, like Kelly said. And then you got the title officer saying, I don't know. And you got the lender saying, talk to them. Who answers the questions? Because these new people, they don't know what they're signing. So how do you manage this? These poor people.
I always suggest that you have an attorney represent you on a complex multifamily or other purchase transaction. It's well worth your money. They have opportunity, and hire them before you sign your PSA, because once you sign your PSA, you get a valid binding contract, too late for you to actually negotiate it. So hire your counsel beforehand. The title company is going to say, we are a neutral third party. We are not going to get into interpreting the contract, who does what. That comes between the two parties, and that's a meeting of the mind of the buyer and the seller. So make sure you got your guns, your attorney's hired, and y'all just go to battle with it.
Good. Perfect answer. I love it. Are there any questions so far? I know we've got title requirements and standards, survey requirements and standards, escrow requirements, zoning requirements. These are all things that are needed in every transaction. Is there anything that you want to go over? Some of the construction, some of the discounts for title insurance. What would be helpful for our listeners tonight before we, yes, Jami, before we switch it over to Jami and your application that you want to show us?
Well, you know, I was just going to add, when you said discounts, it just made me want to just bring up how things are done differently in different states. You know, in California, working on the title insurance side, you know, I'd have clients where they would call and say, okay, how much would you quote me for an owner's for, you know, I'll just throw it, you know, 4.5 million. What would be the title? What would be the title fee? What can you give me for that? What can I get for that, for the owners? And then they're going to get my quote, and then they're going to turn around and get a quote from 4 other people. You know, not everybody is that way. It's not always that way, but there are people that it's price, right? The escrow fees in California are higher than the escrow fees in Texas. So in Texas, you have set rates. They're not negotiable. They are what they are. They have the highest, we have in Texas, the highest insurance policy rates nationwide, actually. But the escrow fee is lower. The closing fee is lower. So that balances out right there. And whereas in California, the escrow fee is much higher than here. So it's just interesting, state by state, things are done differently.
Now, I remember also being on the residential side where you would have a relationship with the escrow person. And originally, years ago, they would take you out for lunch. And as over the years, you guys could no longer do that, right?
C-133 in California, where so coming here from California is much different. You know, we can here, I can take a client to lunch, I can pay for their coffee as an appreciation, as you know, as far as just doing business with them, meeting someone for lunch. You know, I can pick up the tab if it came down to it, or they can for me, or vice versa, or whatever. But in California, no, you cannot. As far as title and escrow, you cannot buy them a bottle of water, or you could get turned in.
Yeah, very, very interesting. So changed guidelines here in California on the residential side. And so my experience was on the residential side, a lot of the title or escrow companies would provide a service to try and identify themselves as different. And they would offer a service of how do you look up sellers. And so Jami, you had said, hey, we do something like that. And I thought it was really something that our folks here on the call would really be looking for opportunities that they could use this service that you provide as well. So if you could help walk our listeners through that, I think that would be very helpful.
Yes, for sure. So we have Fidelity, so just to back up on when I said Fidelity owns Chicago and Fidelity, so it's Fidelity National Financial is the mother brand that owns Fidelity National Title, Chicago Title, Lawyers Title, all the, that title companies under them. So because of that, having such a big resource bank, we have things like she was saying, where we can go in and we can have lead generations or lead generation source. You can have a farming source if you're looking for comps, if you're looking to pull up a property profile, and let's say you're just diving deeper onto a property, or you just want to know more about a building that you pass by, you can type in the address, for instance, and you can pull up a property profile. In that property profile, you can have, there's hyperlinks to the county where you can pull up the recorded documents, what's recorded, the last grant deed, who owns the property, what they own on, or owe on the property. That's a valuable tool right there. If you're just wanting to see, how much they bought it for and what they owe against on it. Another thing about that I like, as far as dealing with commercial properties, and if you're dealing with an owner, let's say if you're a broker and you're dealing with an owner and you want to know what other properties that they own, what's in their portfolio of properties, under that property profile, you can look up the mailing address where their tax statements are mailed to, and then you could go back to the homepage, and then instead of searching on the property address or owner's name or APN, you can search on the mailing address. And then what it will do is the resource that we have, the tool we have, can pull up what they own, the properties they own nationwide. So if they own 38 properties, you're going to see the list of those properties. And a lot of times in commercial real estate, depending on the properties that they own, they're not going to have the same LLC or same entity name on each of the properties. But by pulling it up by the tax mailing address, you could see, a lot of times they'll do it under street names, let's say Elm Street. So it'll be Elm Street LLC, or, Cherry Street LLC. A lot of times that's common to do in commercial real estate. You could then go into that property, and then you can see under the last deed of trust, let's say, under the managing members, you'll see the same individual names, or at least one of the individual names that own the list of property or under their portfolio properties. So it's a neat tool. I have lenders that use it. We also have premium leads where on some of the loans, the lenders record, they'll actually have the interest rate recorded on it as well on the riders, on the attached riders to the deeds of trust. So you could do a search under the premium leads. You can pull up a county that you're looking for, or just an example on the lender side, if there's a competitor, a couple competitors that they have the same kind of loan programs that you have as a lender, you can go in there and you can pull up the lender names and do a search under those lender names. And then you could even have a minimum interest rate to a maximum interest rate. You could even put loans that are coming due within the next 2 years. And then you can pull up a list of those properties. And I'll pull it up in an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, and even for people who are looking at assets, who are trying to buy those, to find a loan that is going to be coming due, you could look that up and go after those from a purchasing position, from a purchasing standpoint. That's a very good way. So if you guys, is there a way, Jami, can you show us, were you able to share your screen to show people and be able to offer how people can sign up for this?
Sure. I mean, definitely reach out to me, and I'll put I don't know if I have my information, if my information was sent out already, but I can put my information in the chat. Reach out to me, and if you are interested in learning more about the tool and how to navigate it, I can easily do a one-on-one with you. It's kind of hard to do as a group, but
is there a way for you to show us how
sure, I could share a screen,
yeah,
and then just give you just an overall. I can do that, definitely.
Yep.
I don't know, do I need to?
Nope, yep, just go ahead and share your screen.
Let me go into my, can you see my screen now or no?
Nope.
Okay, hold on one moment. Let me just make sure and get into the into my account real quick.
While we're waiting on her, I'll give a very succinct definition of title insurance,
Good.
which and the value of it. If you will take nothing else, take this. It is a risk of loss and it is the risk of litigation. So when you get a title insurance policy, you are being protected against not only if there's a defect, you can file a claim, we will pay that for you, but also even if you're in the right and someone comes at you via a lawsuit, the title insurance policy will protect and pay your legal defense in that matter. So not only is it risk of loss, but it is also risk of litigation. And that's the real value in the insurance policy.
You know, I'm going to share a story. I owned a property in San Diego, and it was a duplex at the time. And I had, they took out title insurance, and I bought it from a flipper, and it was fine, it was covered. I went to refinance it, and I've got clout on title from the previous people who ended up having a code violation. Well, the people who were the fix and flippers also did the escrow. So they pushed it through. And so
hopefully you had a national
I did.
underwriter, and so
I
they covered
did.
you.
I did, and then I went to sell it, and it showed up again. They said, "Oh no, it was fine," and they said it was covered. And I was like, "Okay, I'll do the refinance," and they said it was covered. Then I went to go sell it, and it showed up again, and it wasn't. And again, it wasn't taken care of. And I was like, "You guys, what the heck is going on here?"
Well, that's a really good
So-
point that you're bringing up, Julie, because owner's policies differ vastly from loan policies. So something that's on your transaction as an owner's policy, I could let ride on a loan policy because it's not going to affect the lender's coverage. So it's a good point that you're bringing up. There's two different things at play there. One's insuring you as an owner, which is a much greater liability, much greater risk. And then because there's certain things that are going to happen, you own the property. The lender, we're just insuring for the time that they own the loan. So
Yeah, that's true.
Two different coverages, two different.
And one is
different
backwards and
protections.
one is forward.
No, they're all backwards.
Yeah,
they're
they're
all
both
backwards. But
Well, wait,
yeah,
if a lender is going forward,
no, yeah, but the title policy is set at the date that the deed of trust is recorded. So,
okay, yes, okay, gotcha on that.
and it
Okay.
would cover things behind. So
Behind, gotcha on that.
your deed of trust was dated, let's say in June, but the lien that you're talking about from the flippers was dated in January. So that
Yes.
January was always a cloud on the title because it came before your deed of trust.
My
to your
deed of
lender.
trust, that's right, correct.
So,
Okay,
yeah.
Jamie, what do you got there?
Okay, so this is the home screen. So once you have credentials set up, this is what you would see here. And then you have these three different categories that you can go under. Also on this home screen, there are little training webinars here and videos, just quick reference guides too, if you ever forget anything. But just to show you, just to give you a quick, overview of it. So you'd go under the home screen, your property address. Here are the search criteria here: property address, mailing address, APN, intersection. That's cool too, to do owner name. But for this, typically I just use it under the property address and mailing address for the examples that I was given that I gave. So here, just for an example, I'm going to give the property or the building that I work out of in Fort Worth, the Fidelity Commercial Group in Fort Worth. So I'm going to give this address. You could do it under the county, but I'm going to put Fort Worth. And it'll pop up here too. You just do it that way and then hit search. And hopefully my internet's not slow like it was earlier.
Is that a subscription, Jamie, or is it just a relationship that you can establish?
So we, all of the Fidelity family, we use, it's under Black Knight as our vendor. So we pay them and it's something that we provide to our clientele. You know, and you have up to so many property profiles monthly and so many documents that you can pull, but it's something that we give as a tool for our clientele. And a lot of people will, you know, our brokers will use CoStar, let's say. A lot of times they'll use it hand in hand with CoStar. You know, if they're, you know, looking up and they're pulling up properties and then they want a deeper dive on it, then they'll have, you know, the Fidelity Passport
Looks
side
like
by
it's-
side, you know, looking it
look-
up. But
Looks
it's
like it's
slow right
stuck,
now,
yeah.
sorry.
Does
Yeah.
Billy have this?
Oh, you're muted, Billy, sorry. My internet connection right now, in my office, of course, my work office, it's fast, and I don't know why it's slow this evening.
I apologize, but I'm about to get kicked off in 1 minute and 51 seconds because I have a computer update.
Oh, okay. Well,
Oh,
then
no.
that's all right, Billy. I appreciate you
That's
jumping
okay.
on then. Well, you know what, we'll have to, well,
Well, let
what
me
is
go,
most,
let me. You know,
what
I'm
is
sorry,
most
I didn't mean
important
to.
on this is, everybody, is if you guys are looking for information about a property, you can have this, you know, this be part of this passport. Contact Jami and she can give you access to the CoStar reports. You can have the access to the owners. You can have information about, you know, cap rates. There's just an enormous amount of information that you won't have to search the web for. It is an
I don't
amazing
have
amount.
CoStar. I'm sorry, I don't have CoStar, but I know a lot of brokers, you know, that we work with will have CoStar. We don't have CoStar to provide. That's really expensive, and that's different than this. But a lot of the brokers that we work with will use CoStar if they have CoStar, along with
this.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. I
Yes.
forgot about that.
No, that's okay.
All right.
You know what, it froze on that one screen, but I'm going to go to the list. On the homepage, that's where you can pull up the property profiles. You really can pull up reports and documents from that homepage, but it froze on me. So I'm just going to go to the list then right away, what the other thing that we were talking about. And here you always search from, if you're going to build a list or a farm list, from the left to the right. But this just gives you another example. Let's say if you're going to do county or state. Say if you were to do Texas and you just add Texas, it's going to pull up all Texas properties over here to the right. And then you're going to go over to property types. Hopefully this, oh, it's just slow right now on here. But land use property type, I'm going to go to property type. I can hit commercial and be general with it and put add. Or I can hit industrial or whatever I'm looking into, office, multifamily, let's say, add. Anything that I add over here, again, you start from left to right, it's going to be added over here, and then you can take things out by Xing it. It gives you the total count. And then from there, you could even get, let me go back to the property type here. You could go to lot size. If you're searching properties, industrial sizes, let's say a minimum of 10,000 square feet, a minimum, you know, square footage of 10,000. That's where you would type in here the minimum, and then you can leave the maximum out and hit add. But I'm just trying to give you an overall and not a real deep dive, but just to give you an idea of the ideas that the things that you can pull. And then if you can go to instant lists, these are just lists that have already been created with filters. And once you've already done the county and the state and the type that you've looked for, then you can just go ahead and hit one of these lists. Now on this instant list, some of these may have a fee on there, but it's 6 cents a document if they do charge you for it. Property profiles, that's just part of the courtesy that we provide, property profiles. And but some of these lists, you know, if you're getting more detailed and they're extensive, there is going to be, you'll see they'll ask you for credit card information, and you may put $5 in, and that can give you a couple lists because it's 6 cents a document. It's super cheap. But just providing the credentials and all of that and the basics as far as farming and comps, that's just part of, part of what it provides. But I could always jump on a tutorial. I think it's best to do a one-on-one tutorial, and any questions, if anybody wants to have this, reach out to me for sure. And I can put my phone number in
Contact.
here. I'll make sure contact information.
Yeah, in the chat. That would be great. All right. All right. Any questions before we jump into our networking? It looks like please raise your hand before we go to networking. I think that, it seems to me like the escrow and title and escrow has always been kind of mysterious, and people, they don't really know about it, and there's never any discussion in the education programs. It's just, oh, go deal with that. Nobody's talking about it. So I think the overview has been great, and I do appreciate that. And thank you so much, Kelly. And I think Billy is gone, so thank him for doing that. Let's see. Candace is in the house. Candace, do you have any questions? You usually do.
I do. I just raised my hand.
Oh, there you go.
It just came up. So I'm gonna have to listen to the recording of this. I apologize. I was late to the meeting. Maybe this was covered, and I hope I'm not being redundant for others listening. So title insurance, in my understanding, is always seemed to be attached to attorneys, and that you don't have a choice. It just depends on the attorney that you use. So what happens if you have a property where the attorney is just so bad you don't ever want to use again, but your title is attached to them? So if you have an issue, you still have to work with that attorney, or because they provided the insurance? Like, what is the relationship to an attorney providing insurance and the person that you actually paid that policy amount to? Am I making sense in that question?
That's a Kelly question.
Yeah, I think that you can fire the escrow officer, especially if you're, like Billy had said, you're working with a national business unit or whatnot. I just am not gelling with Kelly. We need to go to Jami. We need to go to somebody else. You definitely have the right to do that within the transaction. But remember, you're bound by your contract terms. So it's going to have to be something that you look at with the seller if you're the buyer and say, hey, this is just something where I need to look at my own transaction or my own person and have them look at this. There's, in certain states, you can do escrow, or escrow is separate from title, but you can also do where, I just am absolutely not liking this transaction. And you can hire a different title company and they can do a split on the premium. It's going to have to be something that you really push for, though, because title company, my personal opinion on it is 50% of $100 is better than 0% of nothing, 0% of $100. So, if it comes down to where you absolutely don't gel with me and you need to have somebody else look at it from your perspective, you can say we need to split the transaction. You have your guy do title, my person's going to come in and do title review or something. But there's definitely ways to get around that. I think also if I feel like I'm pushing the state bar. I'm not really trying to do that. But if you have an attorney representing you from the get-go, they're going to be able to manipulate and manage the title company's underwriters because they speak the same language. You're talking legalese, and some of the words are terms of art and they have a specific meaning, whereas it might not mean the same thing to somebody that's not been in the business for very long. So,
and from state to state, like in Massachusetts, you have to get your title insurance from your attorney. Isn't that right? Remember that? So I was kind of stuck in that by the state regulations. So So let's say in the state of Massachusetts, and that, let's say the attorney just disappears, goes wherever. Am I just kind of like stuck, even though I have a policy, but it came from the attorney, or is that policy through another big company?
The policy is written by the underwriter.
Yes.
So look at your transaction, look at on the commitment, Schedule D in Texas, but the commitment will always reference who the underwriter is. There's always a phone number that's going to be on there that's going to tell you who you can call. And on your policy, it'll be in the jacket of your title policy, who you can call at the actual underwriter. You're not going to be forced to deal with that same person every single time, especially if you have a claim issue. You're definitely not going to be dealing with that person.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Good question. All right, well, let's see. I think that is it. Jami's got some people to get on her schedule, and that's fantastic.